This little flathead Ford is an icon, a symbol for an entire era. It gave birth to the hot rod movement and didn't even need an epidural. This is everything you need to know to get up to speed on the Ford Deuce Coupe. The Ford Motor Company was riding high on the success of the Model A, the Model T's successor that offered contemporary luxuries like electric engine starters and fancy styling for a low, low price. Ford's thing had always been offering the best car for the lowest price. But in the early 30s, Ford was feeling the heat from its competitors. Ford decided that once again, another game changer was due. The name of the game for Ford's new model would be innovation. Many cars of the era had bodies that were little more than steel nailed to wooden frames, just like my high school girlfriend. This meant that when the car was outside, which to this day is where cars spend most of their time. Anyway, when it was outside, it was completely exposed to moisture, dry rot, heat, and worst of all, termites. I mean, guys, can you imagine getting into your car and finding termites in it? A car in the 30s was nowhere near as durable as yours is today until Ford whipped up a little thing called the steel enforced body for their new car. Not only would a steel body be much stronger, but it would also hold up against the elements for decades to come. That sounds like a specific detail that will be important later on in the story. I guess you'll have to hit that subscribe button to find out. The 1932 Ford platform would be shared between two cars, the Model B and the Model 18. Both models came in a wide variety of different versions. There was the coupe, the two-door sedan, the four-door sedan, the cabriolet, the phaeton, the pickup, and most importantly, the roadster. And remember, all these cars were available as both the Model B and the Model 18. For the mathematically challenged out there who don't happen to be a math boy like me, that means Ford was selling 14 different versions of the same car. And you thought the Jeep Wrangler had a ton of options. Henry Ford had wanted an 8-cylinder engine in one of his cars since the release of the Model T. His first real attempt was in 1922 with his X8 prototype engine, which was basically a radial engine like planes used. But it didn't work because of cooling problems. Henry was pissed, but he didn't give up. The Model A came out in 1927 and Henry pressured his engineers to get a V8 out the door, and soon, toot sweet. Turns out, Ford's instincts were correct. Because in 1929, Chevy debuted their V6, which made gobs more power than the Model A did. This enraged Henry. The advancement at Chevy meant Ford was working double time to finish their V8. If Ford could be the first ones to market an affordable 8-cylinder engine, it could change the game entirely. But there were a few reasons why no one had done it before. First, most V8s of the time were cast in several pieces, then bolted together. Ford hated the thought of it. Second, V8s didn't run nearly as smooth as inline designs, and people thought a V8 would just shake the car apart. Neither of these reasons deterred Henry. People at Ford were so skeptical of building a good V8 in time that Henry's own son insisted that the company built a V6 instead. But there was one thing they didn't count on: the fact that Henry Ford was possibly the most stubborn person to ever live. So Henry pressed forward, and wary of the skepticism within the company, had 4 separate teams, working on 4 separate V8 designs, all of them unaware of each other's existence. Even though he wasn't an engine builder himself, Henry insisted on giving the teams strict guidelines to stick to, regardless if they made sense or not. Henry forbade one team from using a water pump on their design. On another, Ford told them they couldn't use an oil pump, which was weird because the Model A had one. What the heck, Ford? Finally, after only 16 months of design time, Ford had his V8. Measuring in at 221 cubic inches, the engine made 81 horsepower and had a dope name: the Ford Flathead. Unlike modern engines, the Flathead's entire valve train lived inside the engine block. But the rushed development of the flathead meant there were going to be some problems. And remember, this engine is going in all of the new Model 18s. It wasn't uncommon for the new flathead to burn through all of its oil before the gas tank was empty. And since Ford didn't quite nail the casting, engines could straight up break in half, and piston failure was rampant. See, this is what happens when you rush things. Kids, I know you're watching. Don't half-ass your homework. Do your best, and your homework won't split in half when your teacher turns it on. That is a little advice from Uncle James. The flathead made 25 more horsepower than Chevy's V6. And not only that, the Ford was lighter. Despite numerous problems, people really loved the V8 and the 32 Ford by extension. Before, 8-cylinder engines were only available from high-end brands like Cadillac. But now, thanks to Henry Ford's unhinged obsession, the common folk could enjoy one of life's great pleasures: the howl of a naturally aspirated V8. In the first year of production, Ford sold nearly 300,000 cars powered by the flathead. Production of the Model 18 continued until 1934, with only one major variation: the grill. You can tell 32s apart from 33s and 34s by the shape of their mouth. This is really riveting. After World War Dub ended, millions of GIs were coming home, starting families and making decent wages for the first time. Everybody was buying a new car. That means all the old flathead cars people had in their driveways were being put out to pasture. Suddenly, you could get a V8 on the cheap. And because of those steel reinforced bodies, the cars were still in good shape. Greasers started picking up flatheads and souping them up with cams, better heads, and better valves. And so a movement was born. It didn't take long for the hot rod scene to start mixing it up with the surfing scene in Southern California. Surf rock bands like the Beach Boys started singing about it, which took the whole thing mainstream. She's my little Deuce Coupe. Soon enough, everybody but their dad, which are lame, dads suck, was hot rodding old flathead Fords. Today, people still can't get enough of the little Deuce Coupe. There's tons of companies out here producing brand new 32 Ford bodies. Apparently, there are more 32s registered in California than 32s were built in 32. People are building high boys, low boys, drag boys, autocross boys, ultra boys, Deuce Coupes, Deuce Scoops, Scoopity Dippity Whoops, Poops! And they're not all powered by flatheads. People will throw almost anything under the hood of a 32. From the Ford Coyote 5-liter to the Chevy 350, even Ferrari engines. The truth is, the only limiting factor in style and performance is your own creativity. But whatever it ends up being, it's a 32 Ford and it's yours. Thank you. Hit the subscribe and the bell so you don't miss anything. Are Fords really dying? Check out this episode of Wheelhouse. You still want to learn more about Fords? Watch this episode of Up to Speed. Follow me on Instagram at James Pumphrey. Follow Donut on Instagram at Donut Media. If you want to buy some merch, go to shop.donut.media. I love you.